everybody. Welcome back to When Love Interrupts. We are so excited to have a special guest today, Matt Langston. You might know him from 11tyseven. If you grew up like I did, you will definitely know who he is. And of course, my co-host, Jay. I do it every time. You're over here.
I'm over here. Hello.
You're over there. Yes.
Who knows?
I
did it right that time.
Good job. Matt, thanks so much for being here.
Yeah, absolutely. What a great way to spend the afternoon.
This is good. I'm glad. This is going to be fun. Oh my gosh, wait. First to start, I had to show you this. I was in my mother's house the other day in her basement, and I found a couple of CD inserts, and yours happened to be one.
That's so funny.
Yeah, it was really funny. And so then, of course, I had to go through and I was reading all the thanks. And I noticed that specifically in this one, you thanked Conan O'Brien. And I really just want you to expand on that. I mean, I think we all should, but for everything at all times. But
Conan O'Brien was like my lifeline as a kid growing up to like anything unserious. Because there was only so much like Monty Python, that my parents could handle because it was of a different nationality. It was different. It's people over the pond doing stuff like that.
From where I'm at, I know.
Yeah, and Conan was just. I loved the absurdity of everything that he did, and it was kind of my first introduction into absurdist comedy, just for the sake of being silly. And yeah, he was.
He's fantastic. I agree. Yeah. He's one of my
favorites. I used to have a Conan O'Brien quote written in my Bible.
What was it?
It was the quote that he had from his last show, and where he goes, he was just saying like, don't get bitter. No one ever gets exactly what they want, but
was it when he was doing like the late?
So it was his last show, and it just, for some reason, it rang really true to me, and I was like,
oh.
But how does that sum up the Bible so well?
So perfect.
Yeah.
Like you could read the whole thing, or you could read this one Conan quote.
Yeah, I mean that's how I kind of, I've always kind of rolled that way. Like if my grandchildren, I don't have grandchildren, by the way. No, but when my children grow up and have children, and then they read through stuff I've written, and it'd be a lot different than my mom's, but what my mom had written in her Bible.
Yeah.
So,
same. Same. Yes. And Matt, are you you're in Western North Carolina still, right?
Yeah, just outside of Asheville.
Perfect. I am too. I'm in a town on the other side, I believe. Yes. So we're real close.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Yeah. But I wasn't sure if you were still around. So
okay.
The area.
Does that mean we're shopping at the same Trader Joe's at some point, or
potentially?
Okay.
I don't find myself there very often.
I don't either.
Yeah, but
that seems like that might be a middle ground.
That would be a middle ground for sure. Definitely.
How's the parking lot in that one? Is it good? I swear that the parking lots here are awful. I'm in Seattle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They do pretty decent in North Carolina with the parking lots and potholes.
Yeah, they're trying, and as soon as they kind of get it together, we have things like Helene happen, and
I know every time. Yeah, and it's just gosh, it was terrible. I bet right where you were, wasn't it, Helene?
Yeah, it was pretty crazy. We're still, we had I worked on a documentary film called Paper Town about the town that I live in, the mill shutting down in it, and there were parts of 2 or 3 of the original cuts that had a lot more kind of Helene footage in it. And they ended up getting cut because it was like Helene was such a story in and of itself that it was like, there was no way to tell the story of all of the suffering that's kind of happened in the area in an hour and a half. Like the last 5-6 years have been absolutely bananas. So
yeah. For sure. I mean, even us, I'm a little down the mountain, but like we were without power for 11 days. And so, it was terrible.
I'm glad you survived your 11 days.
Thank you.
It's a long time to go without power.
My dad luckily had a generator, so we just run over there a lot.
Right
on. I would love to hear, I've heard you talk a little bit about leaving Christian radio or Christian music in general at that industry. And I was curious kind of where you landed on that. If it was similar to me or Jay.
Or Jay, when I left the Christian music scene.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is great because I was very interested to hear in both of your stories. I feel like I've had a few encounters with you, Charity, and I don't entirely remember the quality of all of them. But it does seem,
yeah.
Okay.
When I worked in Christian radio. Yeah.
Yeah. It does seem like we've all kind of landed in a place outside of whatever that was. Yeah. And I was kind of interested to hear you guys experience, if you're not too exhausted from talking about it.
No.
But yeah.
I'll talk about anything.
Sure.
I am like, yeah. Jay, do you want to go first or do you want me to talk?
Oh, well, yeah, sure.
Okay.
I mean, it's exhausting. And as someone who kind of, it's weird. This Sunday we do, we call the Revolution Gathering now. It used to be Revolution Church, but Gathering just seemed like, still covered that thing, but lost some of the baggage, I guess. And this weekend, what are we, Monday? Yesterday.
Yeah.
I have children, so everything blurs.
Sure.
I did a quote I read from 1 John, and it was John the Baptist. And this was something I never thought John the Baptist, I would relate to John the Baptist, but he's like, people are like, are you the Messiah? And he's like, no. Are you Isaiah? And he's like, no. And like, are you a prophet? And he's like, no, but I do know why I'm here to tell you that this guy's coming and I'm like a voice crying in the wilderness. And I really related to that because it's like not feeling like you really have a place. I do this work that's very much similar to church, but I don't feel like I have a place within that community anymore. Especially the ones I grew up in, but I also feel like I have a message, and I believe that Christianity and Jesus and that stuff is a foundational part of that work, and I also do philosophy and psychology and things like that. But for me, it's just, I need to be able to do things on my own terms, and I'm not, I just feel like it's like when people say like you keep doing the same, what was it? When you keep doing the same things again over and over again, it's madness. Who said that? I think it was
expecting a different result.
Expecting a different result. Yeah. And so I just feel like that's like I'm trying to just do what I need to do and be true to who I am and what my call is. And I've realized how much of what I grew up in was tradition, like hundreds of years of, even thousands of years of traditions that just aren't there in the biblical history or things like that. So for me, it's just, being true to myself and my convictions and trying to help others who might feel in a similar situation, or creating a space for people who are just, don't know where they fit in, and, just living life on life's terms. And that's what I'm doing. I just, I don't want to, like I'm considered a leftist, but like even like left-leaning Christians and communities like that, it's just not something that really, it's just not a place where I am. It's not that I don't necessarily want to be there.
Yeah.
It's just, that's not where I am. You know what I mean? I'm raising kids. I'm going to like sporting events. I'm reading philosophy books and theology books and listening to good music. And, I have a long distance relationship with my girlfriend. It's just like, I'm just living life on life's terms. Yeah. And I like it, and if you look at the fruit of my life, I think that'll speak loudly. So there you go. That's, I don't know if that makes, that, I could go further, but I think that's for time's sake.
No, that's great. I guess I'll see you in hell then.
Me too.
Yeah, probably.
Okay. We're gonna be
speaking of traditions, basically mostly reflected by the Greeks, and their understanding of the afterlife. So I really do study deeply. You know what I mean? Like, and it's funny because I'll go in there and I'll say something like you just said, and then people like, oh my God. Like yesterday I parked in a parking spot and there was like this, like, I guess it was Wicca writing, like in chalk. I didn't know what it was. So I was like, oh, they've got the satanic parking spot, you know, and
Yeah.
the devil saved the spot for me. And everybody's like, oh, Jay, what are you saying? You know, because I also have my parents' fans who follow me on social media. I'm like, I'm just trying to have fun, guys. And you know,
that's so awesome. Funny. I do wonder, is there like a specific gospel that you have now that you feel like is sort of your guiding mythology for like for what you're doing, for this type of thing that you're doing? Because I please forgive my ignorance. I don't entirely know. Like it sounds like maybe you are still in some sort of like pastoral role.
I mean, for lack of a better term,
sure.
You know, I mean, I often think of myself as more of a thinker, but for me, I think if like, you know, it's agape and the understanding of agape love and the understanding that you don't always feel. It's very like if you were to look at like Dr. King's teaching of nonviolence, very close to that.
Yeah.
You know, it's, you know, Dr. King said, he's like, thank goodness Jesus said, love your enemies and not like them. He's like, because I can't like people who are burning, you know, trying to burn my house down, you know, or killing my neighbors, but I can love them. And it's not an emotional, it's not like this emotional type of love, you know? And so it's a type of, I'm going to make this choice to choose nonviolence and that type of thing. So I would say agape and grace. At Revolution, we kind of have like, we have like these little logos. We have grace, and it's got an anarchy symbol as the A.
That's
you
cool.
know, the idea that grace moves outside of all of our denominations or religions, and like grace is for everyone. And what I knew growing up in the church, it seemed like the church was always trying to put an asterisk next to grace, like grace, but you got to do this, and grace, but you have to say, you know, and the same with agape, you know, learning that agape isn't like this necessarily like emotional. Like I used to think I had to feel it. Like I really have to like feel it emotionally. And I realized that I could do that, and it could lead to that, but it's not that type of love where you're going like, oh, I can't wait to see that person again. You know, it's that, I just chose to show respect and be honest, but also be honest with compassion and kindness, the best of my ability. You know, you know, like the pastoral epistles are, in my opinion, are just complete forgeries. So you have to know the difference between that too. So a lot of my stuff is kind of helping people like see, you know, realize that there's problems with this, with what we were told and things like that, and helping people kind of have more of a historical, factual understanding of what they're reading. What's great though is that I'm not a scholar, you know, so I'm able to still play like the philosopher and the pastor and the, you know, play those parts into it as well. Cause I'm not stuck like, well, I can't use this book to talk about this book because these two didn't know each other existed. You know, I can be like, well, there's consistency in the message. So let's look at that, you know?
Yeah. Like as you get older, you kind of experience this context in which you're like, why have I spent like my entire childhood or so much of my life being taught the Bible from people who know the least amount about the Bible?
Oh yes.
And the ones who told you to take it seriously. And then when you did, they were like, get out of here.
Seriously.
I was like, okay, you're a literalist. Well, I'll try to read it like literal. And I was like, oh, there's contradictions if you read it that way. And there's this and there's that, you know? And I was like, oops.
Yeah.
It's very true.
I would speak at like Christian festivals and I would have people stand up and yell at me. One time at Cornerstone, the guy who stood up and yelled at me was the guy who booked all the speakers. And I shut him down like that.
What was he yelling at you about?
He was the guy who was booking the speakers. So I've always, you know, I've always been very like
controversial,
haphazardly human and very transparent and honest. Like, since the beginning, you know, I mean, like when I started, I used to work, I was 16 working at a Christian television station. And, you know, I showed up one day wearing my Clinton Gore shirt. And they were like, that's the Antichrist. You know what I mean? And I was like, now I'm not even Republican or Democrat, you know, but I was like, no, but I was a lifelong, like, so I was always kind of a misfit toy.
That's a good way to explain it. That's how I've always felt too.
A Charlie in the box.
Yeah.
That's excellent. Was this your parents' production studio in Charlotte that you were talking about?
Jay?
Well, no, it wasn't. It was a
Okay.
place. It was a place in Florida. When my parents lost everything, I was 11 years old when the scandal happened.
Right. Okay.
So my parents got divorced when my dad was in prison, and I chose to stay with my dad, strangely enough. He was in prison though, so I couldn't. He was in Minnesota. But Shirley Fulbright, who helped run the church and the ministry and was a longtime family friend, said, well, we're going to open up an office in Florida. And I said, okay, well, I'll go there. And, and then they offered me a job doing camera work at a Christian television station. Cause like you said, earlier, it's like, they'll just take at first they had me volunteering, but when they realized I wasn't showing up, they're like, I guess we have to pay this guy. And I remember I used to always go out and have cigarettes during in between. And I didn't realize I was smoking in front of the camera every time. So the owner of the station offered me $100 to quit. So I did for like 6 months, but it was, I've had a very, so I would see all these people that I knew as a kid coming into these, because when my parents, it was like the Wild West again, the biggest Christian television station went down, and like TBN kind of went into that place, but all these little ones were doing well too. So, I would see all these people and I would just be like in there, dropped out of high school and doing camera work. And I went back and got my diploma and all that stuff. But that's how am I the guest? I'm the guest.
You are the guest, Jay. I love this.
I like hearing about it because
you want to be the co-host now.
I do too.
Yeah.
Today.
Because there's so many little ways in which I feel like I popped into the ancillary bits of your life. Like I remember our band playing in those old production studios, like when a church took it over. And I remember walking in there and hearing my parents talk about your parents' show growing up. And then seeing it, how it had kind of morphed into like when something passes away and something new is kind of coming up through the husk and everything's just kind of dying off. It's like a strange kind of thing, like walking into a church that feels kind of like when you're a kid, every time you go into church, it usually takes about 15 to 20 minutes for it to not feel like everything's dead in there. It smells so stale and the vibe is so stale. And you kind of have to bring something to it. But when it's gone, it's loud. The absence is loud.
There's a movie called Return to Oz.
I love that movie.
Yeah. And
the old Disney one?
Yeah. And it's like a little girl goes back to Oz, but it's all grown over and all abandoned. And that's what it was like for me going back after that, is watching it slowly die and watch all these different churches and all these different companies try to like take it over and do different things. And so it's like going back to like you've had a dream that was pretty spectacular, like pretty like like just completely unreal, and then you go back and it's like, well, there's parts of it still here, but it wasn't what you thought it was. And so it's really it was very strange. It's very strange. Like I haven't been back in a very long time, but I did go back for a documentary I was working on with some folks, and it was it's like it does. It feels like I feel like I'm in a dead body. You know what I mean? Like, or you're, it's just the body, like the soul or even the blood or whatever you want to say. Like it's just not there anymore. It's just not there. It's like, it's deep sadness when because I do know, like, I mean, I remember being back there and seeing like, it was like very inclusive. People don't remember this. Like my dad became very conservative the past 20 years, but back then they were very inclusive. And so it was wonderfully racial balance there. There was like you would see nuns, like Catholic nuns, like walking down in the Grand Hotel, you know what I mean? Like, cause it was a place, you know what I mean? I remember the first time my dad took me to a giant, like mega church that was, I can't even remember who it was. might've been like the Crystal Cathedral or something like that. But we went and I was like, well, where's the restaurants at?
Yeah.
You know, well, where's the hotel at? And they're like, they don't,
Wow.
I'm like, well, how does this guy own a 747 and not have, you know, and only have this build? They only have this building. Like we have to go somewhere else to do, you know, and at Area USA, they had like all these different, you know, it was just, it was a strange, you know, you could see like over the week, you could see 150 different people speaking or people singing or people having studies or people doing marriage counseling and things like that. So it was just so weird. I mean, I went to school there, you know, it was my school. It was my life. So
yeah. That's so crazy to think about, because I've never, at this point in my life, maybe there is something that's outlived it, but I feel like my whole life has just been seeing every community that I ever thought was cool or awesome or that I invested myself in, all of it at some point becomes a victim of scandal. It implodes within itself. It blows up. It becomes culturally irrelevant. It's been harder as I get older to feel like institutions at all are a thing to be invested in or revered or manufactured. Like because you see everything kind of fade away. Interested to hear like what your experience was in that.
Well, it's so funny. It's just funny. So serendipitous. I was thinking about the three of us on here because my parents, of course, watched Jay's parents. You know, that was always on the TV. And then I loved 11-7. So I would come do your guys' shows constantly, you know, and stuff. And so it's just funny again to sit here and all three of us kind of land in very similar places, you know, where it's lots of it is heartbreak. Mine was a lot of heartbreak because I grew up very, I was Pentecostal, grew up Pentecostal. So I'm talking when my mom would bring me to your concert, we couldn't even let the church know. Like,
what the hell?
11-7. Okay. Could not. Okay. And so anyway, so of course, because it was that strict, like Christian rock, all that fun stuff, pop, that was an outlet for me. Because it was the closest I could get almost to anything outside of, you know, organs and a piano.
Yeah,
and,
of course.
Yeah. And I, it was wild. I grew up with some fun experiences. I got to watch an exorcism one time on a 12-year-old child.
Oh, so you got to witness child abuse. That's cool.
I did. That was, and I did. And it also, they had to go a step further and make sure that it traumatized everyone in there. So, you know, they were like, you know, if you're not 100% sure that you are saved in this moment, just get up and walk out. Nobody's going to judge you. They were all going to judge you. You know what I mean?
Yes. They sow their own seeds of doubt and then charge you for the cure. Yeah.
And it's awful because I remember I just like crawled under the pew and like had my face like on the carpet, just like smelling the old fabric and stuff, to anything to take my mind off, and I could still smell it. But like, I just remember that was one thing as I started to kind of like question and deconstruct and kind of come out. That's one thing that popped in my mind. And just especially as an adult now, having a son, I can't fathom him going through something like that. And the fact that I was more scared to get up and walk out than I was to potentially have that demon jump in me. Because that's also what we were told. You know, that's why we had to leave, you know. So,
right.
Anyway, crazy. But so I then went into Christian radio and I loved Radio U. I don't know if you remember.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Yeah. I figured you loved it. I loved them. And I went to Ohio several times and
was it Obadiah? Was that one?
Yep.
Okay.
Obadiah,
okay.
Nikki,
Got it.
All of them.
Yeah.
And but this was oh God, like 18 years ago. I don't want to say. Okay. Anyway.
No, brilliant.
Yeah. So I went there and like volunteered some, did my senior project on them, but then I got a job in South Carolina, actually in Greenville and Spartanburg. at his Radio Z. I do remember also, this is fun. I remember when you came one time to the station, we were talking, and at the time you listened to a lot of WNCW. Do you still listen to?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. That's my town. If that should tell you exactly where I'm at.
Okay.
But yes. But that's actually where I got my degree, and I used to work on there some a little bit too. But as I got into the Christian industry, I just saw way too much. And, your eyes are open to a lot of the hypocrisy and, how it truly does just come down to money. And I mean, record labels, if I couldn't get so many, like the song they wanted me to, spun so many times within the week, I might get a message back that was just not kind, and I was like, I'm not the one putting these on. I'm trying, and it's just ridiculous. But anyway, so I started to deconstruct in like 2018, 2019.
Yeah.
And I actually found we've had several guests on like Derek Webb and similar, and and talking about, just a bunch of different stuff, and a lot of their music, helped me through the deconstruction. But it's funny because the very first one I found was Fear the Fire from Basic Glitches. And when I heard that song, let me tell you, it just like blew it. I was just shocked, first of all, I guess, that I could even outwardly and openly question. Yeah. And also realized, okay, I'm not alone in so much of this trauma and like these things that I've experienced all my life as a child, like growing up in that impurity culture and just all of everything. And so, so that's a lot of my story. Sorry, Jay, I talked a long time too. Gosh.
No, I loved it. I'm sorry that it sounds like you were going through some really heavy existential shit around the same time that like COVID was about to shut everything down. So there's nowhere to run from any of your thoughts or any of the reckoning.
Nope.
Yeah.
And that is exactly what happened. Kind of getting trapped in it and having to just reckon with it, not having a choice. Yeah. And also my son was getting a little bit bigger at the time. Well, I mean, he was like 4, but still. And I was very, thinking, what do I tell him? We live in the Bible Belt, we don't go to church. Like, what am I going to tell him when his friends are like, ooh. And so I was just struggling with all of that. And so to find some people that have, that were also going through a lot of the same things. Yeah. It helped a lot during that time. That is for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like, raising kids and seeing what they can't see yet has to be so difficult. Cause especially in the South, it's this kind of thing where you can't just believe differently. You can't just maybe lean towards atheism, or you can't just be questioning. If you don't adhere, it is viewed as so threatening to people. And there's all of this cultural subtext. If you don't understand, if you don't at least understand Christianity from like an American South perspective, you won't get the culture. So much of it will be lost on you. You'll be flailing. Yeah. It is like a deep-seated superstition and mythology that is incredibly strange, but kind of just runs in the blood here.
It does.
Yeah.
I mean, my son heard about hell before from other people, before I was so protective of him over that because I was petrified for so long of getting left behind or dying and going to hell. And, it was going to be one of the two. So I'm honestly shocked. My birthday was last week, and I told my husband, I was like, never thought I'd make it to 36. Never.
Because the rapture.
The rapture.
Right.
100%. Was like, please, God, just let me be old enough to get married. Please just let me be old. It's ridiculous. So, It's funny also, Jay, a second ago, you were mentioning Return to Oz. Yeah. And one of Matt's other songs is called Curtains. That really spoke to me a lot. I think I sent it to you, Jay. I can't remember. But I don't know if you've been told this or if this is even where you're coming from. But every time I hear that song, it makes me think of the Wizard of Oz, like pulling back that curtain and what if there's not, like, the wizard's not, it's just a normal thing. It's not anything magical or special or powerful. And yeah, I just would love to hear some of where you've landed, kind of what's happened, and because it has been a while.
I think it all feels kind of strange to me because maybe we can interface with it through that song, because I wrote that song with some friends of mine, actually. I don't do a lot of like co-write stuff with 11D, but I really wanted to explore this idea with them because they had similar experiences to all three of us. And it is kind of terrifying to think that there's no plan, there's no ultimate will, there's no anything. And also, you're not in control of that. You can't will it into existence. And if it does exist, you can will it out of existence. So you're like kind of powerless in that way. I think this narrative that there is some great like Godhead or religious figure that like has it all figured out and you are either in its will or out of its will, is probably one of the most damaging ways to interface with reality for me personally, because the more that I spend time in quiet and in solitude, allowing my thoughts to rest, really trying to place all this information where it needs to go, the more it feels to me like we're living in the fucking thing.
Yeah.
Like the miracle is not something that's like that going to happen or not going to happen according to how special or unspecial you are.
Yeah.
It blows my mind that we live in the middle of nowhere. We can't find this happening anywhere else in the universe. We still can't explain what consciousness is or where it comes from. We still don't entirely understand neural networks and how they all work, or human behavior superpositions within quantum mechanics. Like those things to me feel like wait, this just is the miracle.
Yeah.
Why is this not enough? Because the longer that I sit with this, the more it feels like, I kind of never want to leave, because there's always some new depth of personality or of experience or of understanding about something, or a new grace to learn, like what you were talking about earlier. And those things just make me grateful. I genuinely feel like I'm starting in my life to experience a gratitude that I don't have to like chase, that I don't have to fabricate, I don't have to like manufacture through some sort of religious adherence. It's just something happening naturally as I allow myself to grow. And I hear as much from other people that are, friends that are on the same sort of journey.
Yes.
So.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's not an easy journey, but I'm like you, I've started to see that upside to it. And I totally agree. It's magic in itself. It's beautiful without it having to be a Godhead or like, anything like that.
Yeah. Yeah. I was having this conversation with a friend of mine this weekend. I kind of keep coming back to this one thing, that people's religious beliefs are reflections of themselves. They are not reflections of any sort of like higher power or divinity, or all of those things are made up. And all of those things are things that we project onto. This is like the best way that I try to describe religion to my daughter. In that, like, hey, everybody's going to believe different things. Everybody's going to have a structure for understanding the world, and understand that like those are reflections of them, of their qualities, of their values, of their emotional bandwidth, of their emotional intelligence. They're reflections of where they've been in life, where they can stand, where they can't. And I think meeting people first and understanding them first is so much more powerful than immediately relegating people to a side or a system or, so
100%.
Well, the group think a part version of it too is like, when you go into a big communities, or like you were talking about, like the type of Christianity you experience in the South, as you have this group think and which really dulls down people's critical thinking, you know, and so you've got that too. And I found that really interesting because I read Freud's book, The Future of Illusion and Totem and Taboo, and then his thing on group psychology, his book on group psychology, which I can't remember the name right now, but I remember I didn't want to read it because I thought it meant like group psychology. I thought he meant like sitting with 10 people in a group and doing psychology. What he meant was like of groups. I was like, oh, okay, now I want to read. You know, and just kind of like, you know, you really do see it. And it's funny how I experience it now with people like on Facebook or something. Like someone will come up and be like, you're going, you know, and I'll say, well, actually, I'll bring up a few facts. And then they'll be like, I rebuke you in the name of Jesus, or do something like, you know what I mean? They go straight to that. And in my mind, I'm like, it's like they've wandered away from the group. They're not used to confronting somebody who has, you know, some education on what they're talking about.
Right.
You know, and that's the only thing they can do. And they're like, okay, I'm going to just fade back into my group, you know, and, but I've also had really great experiences with people who are like, you know, oh, you know what, you're causing me to think, what should I read? What can I do? You know what I mean? Like that kind of thing as well. You know, it's kind of help people go like, hey, you know, you don't have to throw the whole thing out. You know, you don't have to throw out the baby with the bathwater. There's still really cool stuff here. It's just, you know, we've got to understand, like when we step out a little bit out of our group, we're free to experience that, you know, and you know, kind of reminds me of like AA a little bit, you know, like the 12-step programs, which I've been in for a very long time. Longer than probably almost as long as you were 6, probably, when I got sober, Charity.
Congrats. That's amazing.
So it's you know, so there are some communities that have survived and do well, but you know, that groupthink can be a really, you know, it's just really uncomfortable to see, and really how, you know, that people aren't willing to kind of move outside of that safety, and that religion has such a presence of like a prison almost, you know, for some people.
Well, it is.
You know, it's like 1984, but now it's kind of moved out even further, and now we're kind of all living in it, no matter what we believe. So
yes, God, why did our lifetime have to feel so surreal? Where it's like every book that I read in high school and college that I loved so much were all cautionary tales of things we would literally start living 15 years after we read them.
Oh my God, 100%.
Yeah.
Well, like my friend that lives in Candler, she was on a couple weeks ago on the podcast. She's an author, and she actually she writes for Star Wars some. And
fun.
we were talking about this same thing because we were talking about, there's a quote from, she's so good at this. She would be like, boom, boom, boom. But anyway, I know it's Padme, and it's when the Emperor basically convinces everyone to go, you know, do what they want, to do what he wants. And she says, this is how liberty dies, to the sound of thunderous applause. And that just is all I can think about now, because I'm like, oh, great. We learned nothing from all of these cautionary tales. Nothing.
Well, and growing up being a teenager in the 90s, there was about from like 90 to 95, maybe, where it really felt like things were shifting in a way that was like, oh, we're not going back, you know, like this is like, we're not going to go back to where we're at now. You know, and then around 96, 97, things I started to notice a shift, and I was like, oh, something's shifting here. You know, this is weird. But, and I was talking to one of my kids' teachers the other day, and I was like, you know, and this is someone who's not religious, you know what I mean? But just kind of the idea of like, we went through this, we thought we had finally reached a point of kind of not necessarily enlightenment, but that we were moving into a new era of tolerance and unity through diversity, and, you know, great music and all this stuff was happening. And it was like, and it was just kind of like, you know, it's like having Jim Crow like come back and be like, oh no, I'm the spirit of I'm very much alive. You know what I mean? Like you watch, like George Wallace and things like that. And you thought like, well, that'll never, that shouldn't happen again. And then something happened.
Not only that, but it's like, it gets worse. They're having to one up it each time.
Yeah.
Well, and I hope what we're able to realize is that the humanity, like it's like when we talk about seeing the fallen preachers and stuff, and what you realize is, oh, they're humans. They're fallen people. I mean, they're just normal people. They're not going to have to fallen. I just grew up in the church, so that's the word I'm using there.
Yeah.
But they're just people. They're not even they're just human beings. And now we're starting to see that with everyone. You know, Prince died. You know what I mean? It's like there's no magical beans. If Prince dies because somebody accidentally gave him fentanyl shaped like something else, then we're living in a world where no one is supersonic. You know what I mean?
It's true.
Yeah. We're all finite beings, and now we're seeing what's happening, with capitalism and money in our politics, and it's just like this is the world we were born into. This is where we're at. So now we have to go like, well, what are we going to do now that we're in the midst of it? And it's tough. It's really, it's tough. Yeah. It's discouraging. And it's everywhere now. When I remember when cancel culture first started being a big thing, I was like, well, I grew up in the church, man. That's all I heard. I remember I was talking to my liberal friends being like, don't get into cancel culture, man. That's freaking 80s Christian shit. Yeah, that's what we did to fallen pastors. Like let's not scapegoat people, let's help people. And and here we are again. They just word it in different ways, and then we keep changing back. And Nietzsche said, "Those who fight monsters need to be careful not to become monsters themselves." And it just seems like we're in it, man. And we're in a time that's. I don't think it would be so surprising for me if I was younger. I mean, if I was like maybe 15, 20 years younger, I feel like it would. I mean, you guys are that, and you seem a little bit disturbed by it as well. So I guess maybe it would, but there's being a lot, but being alive and like remembering things where you just felt like progress was happening. And then you look back and you realize that even those progresses, you weren't being told everything because we didn't have social media and all that stuff. So it was like, oh, it wasn't until years later that I realized what that Clinton's crime bill was doing to poor people in the country. I mean, it was like, there was just never a savior. There was never these people who at the time, it was easier to think that they were, oh, this politician or these people or this.
Yeah. And there's no way to be accountable for all of it. I think it's like the more injustice that you see, the more that your eyes kind of become open, the more that you get clued in, the more it feels so overwhelming. And you go to bed at night asking, okay, what am I responsible for? Because I can't change everybody's mind politically. I can't feed everyone that's starving. I can't do anything about food inequality. I can't do anything about racial inequality on these different levels. The only thing I'm really capable of doing is cultivating myself to try to be the healthiest space for other things to grow. And that feels like the centering thought that I've been having for the last few years, because there's only so much money you could throw at problems. There's only so much time and attention that you can give to suffering in the world. You can't take all of it on. And I mean, our hero growing up did, and it killed him.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Yep, it's the truth.
My dad and my mom were doing that. You know what I mean? Like they were really like lucky with the choice. You know what I mean? They were puppeteers. Puppeteers who just got a chance and got a chance and then got a chance and then did got outgrew. Too big for their britches as well. But it was like, but seeing what, so it was always hard for me because I look back at like the early 2000s and I look at the work I was doing then, and some of it was really great and it was really big. But for me at the time, it just all seemed so small because when you look back at something like somewhat, comparing it to something that you grew up in or comparing it to well, if Jesus did this, I got to be like Jesus. I got to do, or I got to be like my parents. So it's really like, these expectations, one of the things I learned in the 12-step program is how expectations are like the killer of serenity, you know?
Yeah.
And so, but I learned that, but I didn't know it. And then, you know, I mean, I heard it and I go, oh, okay. So when I go on vacation, I won't expect it to be perfect. You know what I mean? Like that kind of thing. And now that I like, you know, I work 3 jobs, you know, I'm working on my car for like the first time in my life. I'm started to do like mechanical work on my own car just because it's financial reasons and
bravo,
you know, and stuff like that. So it's like, you know, living life on life's terms. That's another thing we're in the 12-step program, you know, and you hear it and you feel it and you think it, but then there comes a time where the rubber hits the road.
Yeah, absolutely.
For sure.
So that's an interesting thing about growing up and growing old and having children. And, you know, I remember as a kid, you know, hearing teachers say like, well, when you get in the real world, and I was like, what, paying bills? You know, now I'm like, oh,
I get it.
Now I get it. You know, now I get why they were all so tired and exhausted. And
for real,
you know,
snappy.
It's true.
Yeah.
I
do after school programs and sometimes the teachers, you can tell, are just like snapping at each other, and none of them take it personally because they all know well, we're just exhausted because we've been with 30 kids all day. You know, and
100%.
This is the future, and we're all tired, and we're underpaid, and so
that is so true.
What a wild time.
I know. Well, I mean, the whole point of me even starting this podcast was kind of like what you were saying, Matt. I was like, you know, maybe I can try to use my voice for good. I've not done it in a while. I want to get back out there. My son's a little older. I want to start working again. And just going full force into it. So excited, hoping that, you know, we can bring some people together. We don't all have to agree on everything, but we need to find a way to do it in love. And it's been wonderful because we've had just some amazing guests and conversations, but it really is discouraging just to see how people aren't really going to change unless it's something deeply that they want for themselves. Yeah.
And as much as we think like, oh, these organizations are dying, you know what I mean? Like I'm like, look at the numbers of my Facebook, YouTube channel. And then I look at the numbers of these guys who are still doing the same thing I grew up in. And I'm like, how do they have like 30,000 people? You know what I mean? So it's like, there's still that issue out there, but I get to the point where I just hope that, you know, what was it? It was Tupac who said something like, you know, I don't have to be the voice. If I'm not the voice that changes things, I at least want to be the spark for somebody.
That's good. Yeah.
And, you know, so that's kind of where I'm at with my work is just, you know, I've got people who listen in London and in different places, you know, and I'm just like, hope I can spark just even a day in their life. You know, that's
exactly,
and that's enough. You know, it's like, you know, book deals are great and all that stuff. It's fun, but you know, it's funny because now since COVID, I've only been doing this online, and people are like, oh, when are you going to do a community again? I'm like, I live in Seattle. I moved to Seattle during COVID. I'm like, I don't know anybody, and everybody's like, oh, you should start a church. I'm like, you want me to just go rent a building and just be like, hey, everybody show up, you know? And like, that's not where you know, that's not, I don't think that's the future of whatever what I'm doing is, you know? So, so you just have to kind of do that thing, but you still build these relationships and have these effects on people's lives, and they affect your life. And I really, my mom wrote a book in the 70s called I Gotta Be Me. You know, it was kind of about self-acceptance. And to me, that's, you know, I think it's vital that we're able to kind of accept ourselves and who we are and we're in the story we find ourselves in, you know, and there might be things that we need to change, and we have contradictions, and contradictions are part of life, you know, and if it becomes hypocrisy, then you need to take a look at it and change it. But you know, that's just
being willing to do that is the thing people they have to get to, because it's not hard. It's not easy. I mean, I'm sorry, it is hard. It's not easy to just be like, oh, I was wrong for my entire life. And I preached these things at people that I am just disgusted with myself over now, you know? It's hard. It's hard to, you know, and I, for the longest time, felt like I did have a bigger platform then, but now I need to be louder about what I have learned and what I would love to see the world become. You know, I need to be louder than I was previously.
I can absolutely relate to that story arc of like at the time in my life where I was given the largest platform, I had the least valuable things to say to people. Youth is wasted on the young. I don't know why I had to like live that
Me neither.
to believe it or understand it. But God, it's so true. It keeps me up at night sometimes thinking about some of the things that I platformed it, and we weren't even terrible about that. I mean, we were always this band that was like, we don't do altar calls. We're not doing a worship album. We're not doing, we kind of just, this
Why
thing
do you
needs
think I
to.
felt so safe there, Matt, at your
That's
shows?
very kind.
Yep, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, that's very kind of you. I think I always understood as soon as we had that platform that like, if I can cool you into something or convert you into something, somebody can convert you out of it.
Yep.
So it feels like a fool's errand. Conversion feels like a fool's errand. Like, I don't know why. I think, and watching everybody else around us build these platforms off of conversion felt really icky to me, because I feel like it was dehumanizing to people to think that you could put them in a situation under the guise of entertainment and then emotionally manipulate them into perceiving themselves and other people around them in an incredibly polarized and damaging way. And I think it took me seeing all of that to internalize that in a way in which I'll never be able to forget it. I really hope that I never make that same mistake again. But just like, you know, getting off stage with people that you grew up listening to in youth group, and then hanging out in the green room with authors and speakers that you listen to, that your parents listen to.
Yeah.
And seeing most of them be dipshits.
Yeah. 1000%. Yeah.
It was just like, I don't think I want this for my life. Like, I don't want to be the biggest fucking Christian artist in the world. I don't want to live the life of mercy me.
No.
Like, I don't want to live this like sanitary, crushed to normal, everything is so safe and sterile existence, because all the best parts of me that I love the most came from these moments of dissonance and reckoning with really hard things and hard realities that everybody has to go through. And I feel like religion felt like the easy way out. It felt like sometimes like the lizard brain way. I'm not like trying to impose that on other people or call people stupid. That's not in any way what I'm trying to say. But I just think there's different ways of handling things. And evolutionarily, for our species, for years and years and years, it was advantageous for us to simplify these beliefs, right? Like to free up that brain space for other things. Like, let's call this thing safe. This thing is not. This is okay. This is my tribe. This is not. You know, and I think maybe as we develop and grow as a culture, as a species, like maybe this is what the growing pains look like, of like having to reckon with things. This is how our consciousness grows. But
that's exactly right. I've mentioned this before on here, but my mom, she has kind of gone on this journey with me, which is unique. Most of the time that doesn't happen.
Wow.
My dad, not so much. Yeah. But we have, and I just love this. She has said for years now that when I was growing up, our generation, we were told, you guys are going to bring a revival. There's going to be a revival. And now my mom is like, oh, there was. And all of those people just had no idea what kind of revival it was going to be. You know? Yeah. So, yes.
It's wild when I, like the other day, a few weeks ago, I went to see 90 Pound, a band with members of 90 Pound Wuss.
Yeah.
And another band. And, you know, talking to all the people in the room, and I didn't grow up with any of these people, but a lot of them knew me because of those years.
Yeah.
And it's just everybody, what they're carrying, what they're letting go of, what they're going through in their lives. And, we just, it really, what organized religion, especially like evangelical religion, has done to people is sad, because it is so different from what I've over the years, when just what a lot of people call deconstruction, for me was just studying my work.
Sure.
Yeah, and going like, oh, okay, so a lot of this stuff is just mixed stuff. It's just stuff that was brought on later and added into creeds and done into this, and why there were communities built 2,000 years ago is a lot different than why you would have a community now. You know what I mean? And then it's like, it's not about food and crops and surviving. It's a different thing. And just seeing how what it's become is very, very sad. But at the same time, what I've learned is to not just scapegoat from my experience, because when I do go to, Northern Ireland and I spend a lot of time there, and I go to this, or when I've been to the UK and seen some of the issues they're going through, and a lot of them just deconstructed or gave that all this, there's still issues with groups of people. Like we do have this problem where we kind of replace our ideals and our, what I mean? And then it's turn into another ideal, it's like people who go from right to left, and they're just, like, oh, they're liberal, but they're really still kind of awful. Like they just kept the rage, you know what I mean?
Yes.
Progressive Christians, but they're still kind of, jerks. Or then you go to the other, and their faith is in the politicians, which most evangelicals think their faith's in Jesus, but they're really into politicians mostly. But yeah, you see this just kind of human nature to not grow, or to want to have some sort of safety, someone to protect you. It's almost like the mother figure or the father figure you're trying to recreate in someone else.
Yeah.
And trying to help let people go from that a little bit, and to live in the uncomfort of life and the realities of life it's tough. And I try to put that within my kids, and talk to them about that kind of stuff. They the one time I freaked out was when they asked me if they could go to church with one of their friends, and luckily it fell through. I was like,
not alone.
I mean, their mom's an atheist, so they're not getting a lot over at her house, but they're not getting a lot from my house either. I mean, when they were little and we met in person, sometimes they would be sitting on my lap because I, didn't have a youth group or a sitter or anything like that. But yeah, it's life is really tough, and where all these things that we're being told are the answers aren't really the answers, except I would say some of the way I find answers in my own life is through things like radical acceptance, accepting this story I find myself in, to quote a Brian McLaren book.
Sure.
Just kind of like going, okay, this is where it is, and this is what's going on. And, like I would love to be doing more with my work, but I can't right now because I got to work 3 other jobs to do the work I do. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And
same.
But you just be the best you can be in a way. And I think that's valuable, important. And I think folks like us can help people transition into wherever they're going. If they've been, their safety net has been this Christian community or this toxic thing, is like, we can say, hey, we've been there too. And this is what it's like to come out the other side. Some of us are atheists, some of us are agnostics, some of us are this and that, but we're all going through that. And I think if we could become a little bit more focused, not on just diversity of like sexuality and race, which is a word given by racists originally to keep us divided. But if we could get into this idea of diversities of thought too, and that's one of the things that really impressed me about the peace process in Northern Ireland.
Yeah,
is them, the work towards unity through diversity, like real diversity through disagreements and through that kind of stuff. And learning to live and let live. And I've been talking a little bit about that, but I remember growing up, people being like, live and let live. That's the first word of the Satanist Bible. Do what you will, do what you like, you know.
Like,
also part of the Satanist Bible was that was all written with a little bit of a wink, right? You know, like I had a really good friend who was one of my best friends, you know, in my 20s was a Satanist, and he's like, everything we do is like kind of a wink, right? You know, like we got a little wink involved in what we're doing. It's not like we're actually worshiping the devil.
Well, it's the whole point.
I was like, oh, okay, you know, that's cool. Whatever, you know, get your pentagrams on your elbows. It's cool.
The performance art of Satanism or Satanic Temple kind of
at least
stuff.
they know that's what they're doing.
Yeah.
I mean, I found that a lot with the Southern Gospel community when I was younger. There was a performance art part of it, you know.
For sure.
That's so funny. Yeah, like what you were saying, finding yourself in the reality that you're in, trying to accept that. I constantly have this thought that like as long as there are rock stars, the plot of music will be lost.
Yeah.
As long as there are famous pastors, the plot of Christianity is going to be lost. Like it's not a power structure. It is not it's something to platform other people on. It's a way of interfacing with something true about yourself. It's a way of interfacing and witnessing the truth of reality, coming to acceptance, the radical acceptance that you're talking about. And I feel like that the way that we interface with those kinds of things in life, that it's hard to consider yourself a musician if you're not this successful, or that you did something worthwhile if you weren't on this label or didn't make it to this place. And it's like, but if none of that exists, would you still want to explore yourself in a way that music lets you do? Would you still want to explore your consciousness in the way that religion helps some people too?
One of the things that encourages me when I hear, like, sometimes when I listen to podcasts of comedians, Mark Maron especially, but they talk about this drive to do it. You know what I mean? It's like, it's not really ever about like, oh, I just got famous, but if I wasn't, I still have this drive to connect with people, to make them laugh, and to do this type of thing. And I found that to be, that was very true about my mother as well. And I got that, I believe, from my mother. My father, in a way, I think he's still battling with God and acceptance and doing big things and trying to be Jesus or like Jesus and type of thing, what he thinks Jesus is.
Sure.
You know, but for my mother, there was always this compulsion to let people know that they were loved. Like even when people would come up and say the most worst thing, she'd be like, well, honey, you don't know me. My name's Tammy. And she get to know, like, it was always like, I don't need enemies. She had a genuine love for people. She had like agape plus, you know what I mean? Because she was like, she felt it, you know what I mean? Like she felt love for that person. Like it was, you know, and I was always like mind blown. I mean, even to the point where she would like say something, talk to somebody who was mean to her, and they'd walk away, and then I would still be standing there and be like, I want to tell you.
That would have been her.
I'm going to tear you apart right now for what you just said to my mother, even though she was nice to you.
That would have been her streaming service, Agape Plus, if she could have started one.
Agape Plus. Yeah. She was just really good at that, you know, and being who she wanted to be, which kind of gave me that. But I have that compulsion where I want to connect with people, where I want to talk about things that I find are valuable, important, and to help other people's lives. And so, like you said, like, it's like, would you still like it if the people weren't there? And I know for me, the answer is yes. You know what I mean? Mine is, you know, I've got plenty of doubt, and that's fine. I mean, I love, that's what I love about theology and philosophers too, is that, what was it? Paul Tillich, who said, you know, doubt is not the opposite of faith. It's an element. And I found out just this year that when Dr. King was studying philosophy, he was losing his belief system,
Wow.
and he loved Paul Tillich, and he was reading Paul Tillich, and he read that same quote from Tillich.
Yeah.
And he goes, oh, okay, well, this is just part of it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? This is just part of it. And it's not, and so I was like, oh, that's really cool. Like
well, sadly, we're typically told not to question or,
people, well, James says you'll be like a ship tossed in, and you get,
yeah. Cause I feel like I understand what you're saying about faith, but a lot of times now, especially because of the way that we were raised, I sometimes have no idea what the hell people are talking about when they say faith, because they're like, well, you got to have faith. And they'll give all these reasons why. Like, you had a really beautiful anecdote for like how you perceive faith. Yeah. But for maybe for us, Charity, growing up, and maybe even you too, Jay, like the faith, being told to have faith was being told to develop a willful ignorance about the world, a denial of reality, and that having faith was, in tandem with just kind of shutting down any sort of intellectual inquiry or thought, or introspection for that matter. So it's hard sometimes to know what people are talking about when they say, well, you have to have faith that everything's going to work out well, and faith that everything. And I'm like, well, yeah. Or maybe like what you were saying earlier, Jay, maybe radical acceptance is also a form of faith.
Yep.
No, I mean, even atheism, and then there's letting go of all that stuff is a form of just being like, I am going to logic in, because we because when you live in a, that's why I love philosophy, is because, you realize like, well, I'm just a logical person. And then you read philosophy and you go, oh shit. Okay, okay, well, that's not enough either. Like, well, I'm just wash and wear kind of guy. I'm just common sense. And then you read and you go like, oh God, again, like there's just like, guess what? There is no answer, and that's why a lot of like philosophers I like are like, talking about embracing the void and realizing like, everybody would have the God-shaped hole, but realizing that the God-shaped hole is the void, and nothing can ever fill that void.
I'm triggered. I'm just kidding.
Yeah. So you have to live a life of emptiness in some ways. I mean, that's how capitalism works. And that's why like Amazon is so huge, is because we're
well, it's like they're already trying to sell you the product in framing the problem when they say it's a God-shaped hole. Well, I wonder what we're going to talk about next.
Yeah, well, then they taught us that as kids, with the square and square.
Right.
So
like, why can't I just have a pizza-shaped hole? And
I definitely have. I have a French fry and a pizza-shaped hole. But guess what? I still never can have enough.
I know.
So. That is reality, folks. Is it that desire is always gonna, you kind of have to accept being incomplete. And it's funny because I like that you said how growing up in faith, and that's what you hear. And for me, that's why I do the work I do. You know what I mean? For me, that's why I do Revolution still. After all these years of like changing and growing and evolving, and that's why I'll still, like, I've sat in front of groups, and I remember in Brooklyn one time I stood up and said, hey guys, I don't think I believe in God anymore. Do you want me? Like, what do you want? They were like, and then my assistant pastor got up the next week and goes, I said, but I've got my co-pastor, and Vince has got a pretty big faith, next week his father dies. He gets up and goes, well, I don't know if I believe in God anymore. So now you guys got two pastors who don't know what we believe anymore. So hopefully we'll see you next Sunday.
Wow. You guys were such dicks.
And I had heard stories. I had read a story that I think Brennan Manning wrote about somebody who said that.
Yes.
But I don't know if it was true or not, because Brennan Manning sometimes could stretch the truth. If you read his last book, he talks about it. But before he died, they didn't release until he died. He's like, release this after I die.
He can big fish a few things.
Yeah. And I got to know him. We became friends before he passed, and I was really blessed to have that. But it's like, that actually happened to us. And what we saw was that everybody's came back the next week in our small little Brooklyn community. This was in Brooklyn when we were meeting there. Wow,
so what a gift. That's amazing.
Yeah, truly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what I'm trying to do is let people know, what we want to do is let people know about those moments, and that I would really like to, I sometimes I think of it as like a reform.
Yeah.
What I'm doing is reforming something that, is gotten really shitty, and it has been for a long time. And is it worth reforming? I don't know, but what I do know is at this moment, if I can help bring, some peace to a few people's lives, and say, like, listen, I don't care what you believe. I'm not here to change that.
Right.
Unless it's harming people, or unless you're supporting like cruelty towards others, or you're excluding others. And I would like to change that. I would like to help at least free you from misinformation. But I guess that's my work, is I just want to help people love each other more and free from information. But I think what's interesting about this is what we're saying is we don't have the answers. We're all talking about how we've been hurt. We're trying our best to raise our kids and how we tell them about things. But we all came out being told we had the answer for a long time, and we're just like, well, that wasn't it. Oh my
God. You kind of skated past this like really potent thing that you said earlier in conversation. I had to write it down. You were like, it's learning how to be okay with being incomplete. And I was like, damn, if that's not a life's work, I don't know what is.
Right.
What a noble pursuit.
Well, I thought, here's the thing is, I felt like when the Apostle Paul says there's neither male nor female, nor Jew nor Gentile, nor slave nor free, I felt like he was saying, like, embrace the lack. That's what they would call it in philosophy, is the lack. Like, your identity isn't who you are. You know what I mean? You're giving up everything. You know what I mean? You're kind of just saying, I am. Almost like, and so it's like you got this moment of like, oh,
like Christ is Voldemort, like you can't say his name.
Well, like God is I am. Like, and when you think about like I am, it's a lot bigger than we were ever told.
You
know what I mean? It's like, oh shit. And all we seem to do is like, how can we put something into a box? How can we monetize it? How can we control it? And how can we use it as a self-serving situation? But the lack doesn't do that, because the lack is like, oh, if I just had that jacket, or if I like jackets, or if I just had that car, or if I just had that man, or I just had that woman, or I just had, and then when you get them, that's why you can see like Brad Pitt and like, and what's her name,
Angelina.
You got these, that seems like both lacks are met there. You know what I mean? And like, of course, what happens? They just
exactly.
So the lack is always with us. And so you have to learn to embrace that lack. And so that would be me, is saying, well, the God-shaped hole is never going to be. God's not going to fill it, and theology is not going to fill it. It's a lack. And it's the reason why, like I said, like capitalism and Amazon and mega churches, and why it works so well is because it keeps promising to fill this thing that you're like, well, eventually.
Oh my gosh.
And then they start, well, when Jesus comes back. So you don't think you're going to make it to 30 because you think Jesus is going to, because that's going to get the lack. Or we're thinking about afterlife, and we become completely irrelevant because we're thinking,
I know. And I've thought about that a lot. Like, how much life have I not lived? Because, just.
Of course.
I wasn't allowed. I've thought about that a lot.
I was having this conversation with my daughter in the car the other day, and we were both talking about like Amazon and yada yada, like what you're saying. And I was like, one of the first places to really nail the subscription model was church. I was like, we grew up being like proselytized into the subscription model. You show up, you pay for this service. It's a weekly thing. They're going to charge you. It's a sliding scale. So
could be a 3-time weekly.
At least.
If there's a new PA to buy, then that's going to
be. And I think that's where I actually think that is a lot of what I saw when I entered like into the Christian radio realm or music realm, was that, okay, this is just money. It's about making money.
When you go to those, have you ever been to a Christian booksellers convention?
I don't think so, Jay.
Well, they do it with records too. I'm sure you have, because all the bands are there usually. I met Johnny Cash at once when one of his books was coming out.
Yeah.
And my dad and him were friends, and I didn't realize they were friends. And Dad was like, "Come on." I'm like, "Dad, there's a line. We got to get the line to shake." No, Dad's like, "I know him. Come on." He's like, "Hey, Jim." "Oh, Jamie Charles." Like, he knew my full name. I was like,
oh my God.
and, you know, I thought, well, there's the savior, Johnny Cash. Then he died. Damn it. And Sinead died. Prince and Sinead died. I was realized, okay, well, we're in trouble, folks.
We can't keep anybody around.
Yeah. So, and then to find out like Sinead died from basically like a broken heart. Like they're like, I thought it was going to be drugs. And they're like, oh no, she was just sad. And I was like, what? Anyhow, sorry guys. I digress. But what I meant, like when you go to like these Christian booksellers conventions and you look at the biblical translations, and then you see them selling the Bibles, and you see the different people there, and you see, oh, don't worry, we've got these folks kind of separate, and you see the you know, and that's a world I don't want to be in. And that's what worries me a little bit about like even the more of my progressive friends in the why I've kind of backed away is because even they are like, oh, now it's all about, you know, like they're saying really great things, but I know that what they're saying also has a huge audience and how they say it and what they do. And I'm like, oh, this is another way of repeating that model, but just in a lot cooler way. Because, you know, I was like a cool Christian for a long time.
Yeah.
And I don't even know if they sometimes we consciously even know we've done it when we've been raised in it so long. You know, just like, I'm so pissed. So I'm going to start a club, and then, you know, like Patreon, you know, I was like, one of my buddies, he's a philosopher. He does a great Patreon, but I'm like, you know, like you guys can take the piss out of like preachers raising money and having different levels of giving. I'm like, but you're doing the same damn thing on Patreon.
Yeah,
like, oh,
it's
exactly
special information from me on level 5. You know what I mean? I'm like,
I know.
Has it heard of Amway?
But there's so little to keep us from being motivated to do that, especially because of the culture that we grow up in. It's hard to have everything gets commodified. And it's hard to commodify something and also keep it pure at the same time.
Well, and now we're all in a situation like if I could make a living doing revolution, I would want to do that. You know what I mean? I'd prefer not to like do ditches and paint houses and you know, I mean, I like the after school program. I would still do that, but I would just volunteer it now rather than meeting, you know, but I have to pay my bills. I have to feed my children. I have to do those things. Can I blame them necessarily for doing this?
Exactly.
You know what I mean? Like
you can to a certain point, I think. It's like I'm not against anyone making money off it. You know,
but when you become disillusioned with it, that's the hard part. And I think that's where the rubber also hits the road is like, okay, I'm disillusioned and I don't believe it anymore. You know, but I know a lot of guys who are really good at this stuff and they don't believe it anymore.
Oh, I know.
I mean, I knew some of the guys who raised funds, preachers who could raise money like nobody's business. So the fact where they would go to churches and be paid to come and raise money at those churches.
Oh my God.
But they didn't believe it. They just were like, well, this is what I'm good at and this is what I do. And so,
Well, I'll say right now, if any of them had the fear of hell like I did growing up, there is no way that I would be doing that because it wouldn't matter how much money, you know, they can't possibly really truly believe what they are.
And I wouldn't want to be in, you know, for me, my thing is if I completely lost whatever it is I have, it's definitely not a world I would run in anymore. You know what I mean? There are times where like I would just go work in a factory and make something every day for somebody and just quit. You know, if there's something, I have something that drives me and, you know what I mean? So for a lot of these people are like, well, I don't, you know, I'm like, I don't have it. I don't have that type of tolerance in me without the drive. Am I concerned with an afterlife? Not at all. Do I believe in hell? No. Do I believe in heaven? Probably not. But do I hope? Yeah, that'd be cool.
Yeah,
exactly.
Or are you in control of any of it?
Yeah, I mean, when I was doing this talk on annihilation, I was talking about how annihilation is more than likely what Paul or these people, not Paul. Paul never mentions hell, but Jesus. What Jesus is saying it sounds more like annihilation if it was anything. And then I was like, and I know a lot of people, if they had to choose between like eternity and annihilation, they would be like, hey, listen. What you're doing for those people, you think you could hook me up, just shut me off, shut it down completely? You know, I'm like, I'm kind of tempted like that. Just like, it was good. It was a good run. You guys, if you want to go on, I'm going to jump over here.
Yeah. No, I totally get that. I think something you were hitting on earlier too is like there is this weird kind of ick that happens where it's like, no matter how pure something starts out, at some point you see it cross over into what can only be described as exploitation.
Yeah.
Right. You're exploiting a power 100%. System. You're exploiting a religious system. You're exploiting cognitive bias that people have about the world, and you're making money off of it. And I think I sat in the room, probably just like you did, both of you, with so many people in this industry that it was just the privilege that they had. It's like their faith was synonymous with their success, and they could not extricate the two. And they didn't know. I had no reason to believe that they would even know what their faith was or what they would believe if all of that was taken away, or if it hadn't become synonymous with success and fame and influence and platforming and all of that. And it feels kind of scary to me. I would love to be in the biggest band on the planet. I'd love to be the most successful musician of all time. Absolutely. Now, would my life be any less interesting if that doesn't happen to me? Like, no, it's like probably still going to be pretty rad.
Yeah.
Like, because
maybe even better.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Because like whatever gets your attention gets you.
Yeah.
And it was like really clear that like everybody kind of had their sights set on some pretty fucked up things.
Absolutely.
And it's like all coming to light now. Yeah.
Even I do a little horror channel too, because I love horror.
Oh,
and
fun.
Yeah. And I don't know if you two have heard of this term, Christploitation.
Christploitation.
I have not.
Literal genre of like films, like Left Behind would be one. That's
yeah, okay, that makes sense.
I don't know if you've heard of like The Burning Hell and A Thief in the Night, stuff
I've
like
heard
that.
A Thief in the That was my generation. That was where I was like, if I came home and didn't find anybody.
Clothes everywhere. I know.
God, if clothes was on the ground, I was done.
Y'all, I've been having to pull clips to make this video, and I am like, literally, I'll be like, I don't believe any of this more, and I'll be like shaking. It's still like in my body. It's ridiculous. But
no, it's still real. I mean, I definitely I hate that you call it ridiculous, because I it feels so visceral. It's like something that you can't unlearn. On in one context that everything's fine, but your body still feels like it can feel the flames licking up at the bottom of your feet.
My feet. Exactly.
Oh my God.
And that's like that was the whole thing. And it comes back to, again, just a way to scare and intimidate people into a belief that you can then go on and continue making money from and gaining power from. And and I mean, this guy, and I'm talking about like actual, like the Burning Hell is like actually an exploitative film. Like normal exploitation films. And I am like, I'm just shocked that I ever saw any of this as a child, that I was allowed, or the Passion of the Christ. Like, we went and saw that in theaters, even though we weren't really supposed to go to theaters most of the time, but we went and saw that one, and just, that was fun to see.
That
just brutalized, but I couldn't watch,
even though like that's probably not supposedly the point, but somehow we always make that the point of like the beating.
Right.
Well, Mel Gibson's going to do that every time. He's not going to slow that down.
No.
Oh, that was a weird. Gosh, that was weird. I liked The Temptation of Christ much better than I did.
Oh God, yeah. Well, that's actually art. That's like a good film.
Yeah, when I saw The Passion of the Christ, I was like, oh, it like finally clicked with me. I was like, this kind of seems like a fetish film. Like, I think I understand what this is now. Because for some reason, it's not okay for us to go unaccompanied to see any of the other good movies. But this one is somehow okay. And that's when you're like, okay, there's some cracks in the pot here.
Big time. Yeah. And like hell houses. Did you ever go through any hell houses?
Oh my God. Yes, and this is a crazy thing. Like I started this new band, and a lot of the stuff that we're doing for like promo materials are using a lot of clips from a lot of these films.
I've been pulling them too. That's all I've been doing.
You guys know it's so funny. I'm like Generation X, so my generation's a little bit cooler than yours.
Just kidding. Naturally,
it is though. It's fun.
I mean, we were like the ones that we were told right off the bat, you guys are you're gonna fail.
Yeah.
Like everything's gonna be bad. Like news shows, generation the worst to do worse than their first generation to do. We kind of were told what you guys got, we were told was going to happen to us.
Oh, good. So we
just didn't realize it was going to happen in our 40s and 50s. You know what I mean?
Like,
you guys got it a little bit early.
Then they threw our generation in there.
Yeah.
They were like,
I would apologize, but I don't think I can take any responsibility for
that. No need.
We won't blame you, Jay, personally.
But so the Hell House that I went to in New York, I went with this news reporter. I said, "Do you want me to go with you?" This thing. Oh, okay, let's go.
Okay.
Well, I didn't realize is that it was put on by a group that was artists who just bought it to do it as ironic. And so I was like pissed off afterwards. I was like, "That's some bullshit." And the guy's like,
"Oh, hell no, I want to go through that
putting
right
this
now."
on. I was like, "Well, you forgot to mention that to me before we went in," because I was ready to start yelling at these poor artists trying to be ironic rather than about straightening them out, about like their horrible theology. And you guys were so I did get to experience a Hell House. And in my mind, I was experiencing it as though those people were they were doing good. So, I mean, I guess I got to experience
it. Got to experience it. I don't care how ironic they were.
So angry. I was so angry.
Exactly the same. Well, it's ridiculous. I figured Matt had been through some since
they had an abortion in the one I was in.
Oh,
I was like,
there's abortions, there's car accidents, there's drugs. There's
it starts with a car accident, doesn't it? Like it's like,
if I don't agree
or something.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And they had a gay man singing a song in hell. He was like, they had a martini, but he was in hell. And I was like, they did it. They played it straight. So
that's so embarrassing that our species does that.
Yep. I don't want to claim it. I don't want to claim that.
It is the whole thing of like, the basic theology behind that is this is what God's going to do to you.
Yeah.
And this is what God thinks about gay people.
Yeah. This is God's going to save you from God is the idea.
Yeah.
And
that's it.
Yeah.
And again, it just, again, this was one of those things where it was like, I love scary and horror things. I've just always loved them.
Yeah.
That was the only thing I could that's the closest I could get to like a haunted house.
Well, you guys should
look up allowed to do.
Like why Aristotle was killed. Because that's Aristotle, one of the Greek philosophers, because it was questioning shit like this.
Like Aristotle before us.
Yes.
Part of a long legacy.
Oh,
yes,
gosh.
That's right. That is
you guys, I just realized it's almost 3:00 and I have to be at work at 3:00.
I'm so sorry. Yeah, I forget you're on the West Coast.
Well, this was like, wow. I mean, I don't know what this was. This was like the most, I've done philosophical podcasts, but this was very philosophical.
You really brought it. You brought the heat.
No,
today.
but I'm saying you brought it. First of all, you turned it on us. You're like, oh, why don't you tell me about your issue?
Oh, right.
So I hope you're going to go into therapy or something, because you sound like that was pretty good. You should be a therapist. But none of us have what I like though is there's no answer. So we've grasped the lack. We've gone around in circles. We've shared. It's been like a therapy session, yet it's also very philosophical because none of us have been like, well, you think this or you think that. We're all just kind of like, oh shit.
Yeah. I don't know any more than you do.
Yeah, seriously. I don't even pretend to anymore.
Well, thanks, guys. I'm gonna have to I have to dart out because I have got to get my stuff ready. Because
you're good, Jay.
I have to brush. I didn't brush my teeth for you. I'm not gonna lie, but I have to brush my teeth for the kids because the kids are telling me.
So offended.
Nice.
Yeah. So all right. Well, this was
a pleasure. Yes,
yeah. Follow me on Instagram and DM me so we can get to know each other. And guys,
I will.
All right. And
I'd love that.
How do I don't even know how to turn this thing off. Well, I won't shut you guys down, will I?
No, you're good.
Okay. All right. Bye.